So after the break, in this second half of the class, we're going to be talking about two different topics. On the one hand, we're going to talk about foreign affairs, and you'll see how José María Aznar, the president of the government at that time, changed the focus from Europe to the United States. And then we're going to talk about something that actually, in a sense, many people have considered as a consequence of what actually was the foreign policy of Spain at that time. And actually, those were the terrorist attacks in Madrid in March 11, 2004. So first, let me give you a bit of a bit of a context of where we're coming from. Actually, normally Spain, their natural strategic aim, so to say, in foreign policy, in foreign affairs, was Europe. And Europe at that time and Europe before that, it clearly was dominated by France and by Germany. We normally say that Europe, the European Union, has a Franco-German engine. This is actually the European Union, as you might know, if you've taken any European Union courses. The founding fathers of the European Union are six: Italy, Luxembourg, Belgium, the Netherlands, but the two main ones, and actually the two that created the idea, that came up with the idea, were France and Germany. So Spain had naturally turned to France and Germany in foreign policy. At that time, we could talk about different German chancellors. We can talk about Helmut Kohl, we can talk about Schroeder, or we can talk about Jacques Chirac in France. But those were the relevant stakeholders, so to say, for Spain in foreign policy. However, José María Aznar, from the moment he took office, he changed the focus, and actually international events accelerated this process, so to say. And obviously what changed the dynamic completely were the terrorist attacks in New York City and also in Washington in September 11. And from September 11, the Spanish government shows itself very supportive of wherever the decision Bush administration was doing. And where we culminate this process is when this picture is taken. I don't know if you recognize the people in that picture. Obviously, George W. Bush. Then we have Tony Blair, Prime Minister of the United Kingdom at that time, and José María Aznar. He was the president of Spain. Actually, you actually know, because we've been talking about him in the previous class and also on this one. So when was this picture taken? This picture was taken actually in 2003, and at that time they were in Azores. These are Portuguese islands in the Atlantic Ocean, and they were discussing whether to intervene or not in Iraq, whether Iraq had mass destruction weapons at the time or not. Actually, there were 4 people in that meeting. There's one that was not in that picture. That is the president of Portugal, José Manuel Durão Barroso, that eventually he was president of the commission, but never mind. That's that's another story for another day. But by the end of the day, this position, if you look at the picture, this is positioning Spain next to the United Kingdom and the United States in the international arena, and that's something completely new for Spain. Spain had never had such a relevant role. We remind that we came from Francoism, we come from being kind of pariah, that no one wanted to relate internationally with Spain whatsoever. Obviously, this process of opening to democracy slightly changed things. But this is the time that actually Spain becomes relevant again, and it's actually a strategic ally for the United States. And obviously, this meeting culminates on what we know, that is the Iraq war, that these countries decide to intervene in Iraq to prevent any attack with the weapons of mass destruction that they allegedly had, that eventually actually Durão Barroso has actually in 2007, Durão Barroso said that they lied to him in that meeting, but that's another story, and obviously this can be disputed. But eventually what happened is that Spain, as you can see in the picture, took part into the Iraq war, and Spain intervened and sent troops to the ground in Iraq. So this obviously awarded Aznar a relevant position, so to say. It kind of made him a direct interlocutor, a direct party to talk with the White House and with Bush administration. Obviously, when Obama, we'll see later that the government changes in 2004, that's what we're going to see in a minute, but later with this obviously changed over time and different relations with different administrations in the US. But now we're going to talk about what happened actually. You know that this operation, the war in Iraq, started in 2003. Now we're going to talk about something that happened in 2004, March 2004, and these are the Islamic terrorist attacks in Madrid. The attacks took place on March 11th. There were 4 different bombs blasting in 4 different trains. Fortunately, I mean, this was rush hour. This was something like 25 to 8 in the morning when people were going to work. And the objective of the terrorists was that these bombs will blast at the time these trains all made at the same time to the Atocha station. Actually, if you've taken the train to Madrid from Sevilla, you will have arrived to Atocha. So all these trains will have been at Atocha at that same time when the bombs will go off. And what they wanted actually was the whole station to collapse. Fortunately, the trains were late, and only one of the 4 of them blasted inside of the station. So fortunately, the structure resisted the impact. However, as you can imagine, 4 bombs blasting in 4 different trains, this actually resulted in 193 people dying that day, and over almost 2,000 people being injured at that time. So who perpetrated these attacks? Obviously, at that time, we were not talking about ISIS, we were talking about Al-Qaeda. And Al-Qaeda have always positioned Spain as one of the targets, so to say. But obviously, after joining the United States in the 2003 war in Iraq, the narrative about Spain, about Al-Andalus, that was the old kingdom of, do you remember when we talked a little bit about this in class, I think, that we mentioned how, obviously, the Moors took over the peninsula, and they were here over 700 years, and it was only reconquered in 1492. At that time, we talked about Al-Andalus. That was the name of the caliphate. And what they claim is that that territory is part of the original caliphate of the Muslim Brotherhood, so to say, and it has to be reconquered. But obviously, what actually gave more momentum to these claims was actually Spain participating in the war in Iraq in 2003. Actually, Al-Qaeda claimed the attacks the day after that it took place. Actually, it was 13th March, so it was 2 days after. And the terrorists that perpetrated the attack killed themselves when they were about to be arrested by SWAT squad. And this was early April, so less than a month. They had found who was responsible for these attacks, but however, they were not arrested because by the end of the day, they took their own lives before being arrested. However, the political impact of these attacks was also big. Why? Because of the crisis management. Bear in mind, you have to know that this took place since March 11th. There were elections to happen on March 14th. So only 3 days after the attacks, Spain was voting in elections. The attacks took place on a Thursday morning. The elections were on Sunday. And the government thought that if they recognized the Al-Qaeda as authors of this terrorist attack, people could link this attack to the war that was highly unpopular already in Spain, and that could cost them the elections. And actually, you can imagine that because of how they manage it and how they try to separate blame from Al-Qaeda at that time, what they got was just the opposite. Actually, people could not understand why they were not being tougher, why they were not actually speaking clearly and honestly about what happened. And then the result in the elections was completely unexpected. The polls were showing that the right wing for the 2004 elections had a relatively clear majority, that they were going to keep government. However, what happened on that Sunday, on March 14th, 2004, was the opposite. That the Socialist Party won the elections again. This guy over there, José Luis Rodríguez Zapatero, that we are going to talk about him in 2 weeks' time, was elected president of a government. Actually, he had a majority large enough in parliament to be elected as president of the government. So this is about it, about the right-wing government between 1996 and 2004. If you have any question, please just write me an email. If you have any recommendation about the videos, if you like this format better, or if you like the other one better, please let me know, so I'll continue filming. So have a nice one. On Wednesday, we're going to be talking about Spanish foreign policy. Looking forward to seeing you there. Bye.